Welcome to This Week in Coworking, where industry leaders get succinct, actionable insights.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the This Week in Coworking podcast feed. I am Hector Kolonas, and today we are joined by Craig Baute. Craig, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Hector.
Great to have you here. Now, we're going to dive into some pretty exciting news that you either have just released or are about to release. But before we get into that, you've been pretty involved with co-working in general, but co-working in Denver for quite a while. Could you just give us a quick crib note version of the history of co-working in Denver?
Yeah, so I opened up my first co-working space in Denver in 2011. Really early on, we consider this co-working 1.0, probably the second co-working space in Denver at the time, and probably in the first 5 in the state of Colorado. Small, very 3,500 square feet. We overtook a house. It was literally what co-working was back then. Friends coming together to hang out and work. Started the Co-working Alliance in 2012. At that point, there were around like 7 or 8 co-working spaces in the metro area. The Alliance allowed us to work together with the belief that awareness was our greatest competitor, not each other. So we could pool knowledge, but also financial resources to grow the whole co-working pool. That will lead into all these future endeavors and the benefits of creating these alliances and these gatherings. Expanded creative density, that was my Denver brand, into 4 locations, 4 at any one time. We've had 5 locations. Closed some down, sold some, moved locations. Now creative density has 3 management agreements. One of them is even combined with a coffee shop in a neighborhood. So lots of different varieties. I've seen a lot of co-working, and now also own a space. I've owned a space for the last 5 years in Chicago.
Wow. So you've definitely, we mentioned just before the call, you've just in the last 5 years, you've purchased, sold, and now are merging, not to spoil the big reveal. Tell us a little bit about your story. Like, obviously, you created that co-working brand as a kind of community hub, but that's not all you do in co-working, right? You did the co-working alliance. I think you were the first to release like co-working passport. What else do you do in the co-working world that we haven't touched on just yet?
Yeah, so before I was in the co-working world, I was a market researcher, mostly for consumer products. So that's really, I loved that industry, still love that industry. Really getting to know the psychology, pricing, competitors, forecasting, really finding all of these little dots kind of create an entire picture that is a competitive advantage.
Yep.
Combine that then with being your own entrepreneur, starting your own co-working spaces, of every dollar is your dollar. This isn't a company's dollar. So marrying that mentality of starting your own business with market research knowledge to really add an extra level of confidence to know that this dollar spent is the best way I can spend a dollar, and that I can turn this $1 into $3 or $5 going on. That was the thing that we haven't touched on, is really I've been doing a lot of market research for the co-working industry. I've been a heavy consultant since 2015, worked on over 100 projects in the United States, helping landlords understand, hey, is co-working the right choice? Is this going to be a big waste of money? If it's going to work, what's the best form of co-working here, and what's a realistic pro forma? Have worked with cities that wanted to use co-working as a form of community development, help nonprofits that wanted to say, hey, we want to do something cool for our neighborhood, and people that want to buy a building and saying, this building, I want to do something cool with it. I want to make money on it. Great. Let's put gas on it, and let's go through 13 years of experience to make the right product that also fits your goals, both financially and personally and socially. So that's all through the company called DenSwap now, is the market researching aspect that we didn't touch on yet either. Then, so operating co-working spaces, and then being a market researching data analytics company for the CRE world.
And I thought I was a busy guy. I'm a big fan of both, obviously, Creative Density and DenSwap, and appreciate you being a Patreon brand at DenSwap as well. It allows us to keep doing fun things like this. But I believe DenSwap also has this kind of buy-sell side of it as well. You help people buy or sell co-working spaces. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we have the marketplace. That's actually how I sold my co-working space. I did nothing special except list it on DenSwap and had people come on through. That's that's how I sold my Denver location, and that's how I purchased my Chicago location. Is I saw it sit there. It was friends of mine's that space. It was sitting there for 6 months, and eventually I was like, I raised my hand and was like, guys, I would rather go to Chicago than go to the suburb of Denver. So I'm going to sell the Denver location. I'm going to buy the Chicago location. It very much met with my values of what I want a co-working space to be. I don't want this community to die, and yes, I want to make money. So we have about 4 or 5 really active listings right now, all the way
Mm-hmm.
from Seattle, we got some good ones. Chicago, Denver, we have some. And really, that came about because people like me started a co-working space. Now I have a life event. We need to move. I have a kid. My lifestyle doesn't fit this anymore. I want to just do something else. What is something that we can do to grease that wheels to create this transaction so that communities don't
Mm-hmm.
have to die? People don't have to just write out a lease and then let it die. Like we have a function on how to hand this space over to the next generation. So yeah, DenSwap also has a marketplace functionality to it as well. The analytics complements that very well to be help places evaluate,
Mm-hmm.
is this a good deal? And what are the flaws that what is the
Mm-hmm.
potential inside this space? If I buy it, what is the strategy moving forward this space? So it's like my space in Chicago, purchased. First thing I saw was the floor plan wasn't quite optimized. I had 8 foot wide walkways between desks and everything. Buy it for 65,000. Put $30,000 additional into it. It was like breaking even, but I could see, oh, put $30,000. This trends of these style of offices are working well. It's not going to hurt the community that's already existing. This is, and I know that then I can make that money back in 6 to 9 months.
Yep.
Same
That's
one,
that's
we're
really.
valuing another location right now. And it's, oh, you look at the top of the line funnel. They've only had 12, 20 tours year to date. The top of the line funnel is missing. Our analytics show there's plenty of demand in the area. It's just the SEO sucks. People don't
Mhm.
know about you. Fix that problem. You can, and you can look in the analytics and you're like, that's an easy problem. That's phase one. Phase two is like, here's some floor plan improvements. Here's some realistic things.
Mm.
Honestly, Hector, like a lot of the projects, probably over 40% of the projects that we building owners come to us and say, hey, can co-working work here? 40% probably come back as a yes. It's very valuable to hear a no before you
Yeah.
spend $300,000, $1 million on turning it into a co-working space. So we often say a no is just as valuable as a yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's what you just put a number on it, right? That's almost $1 million in savings by not doing it. If the feasibility says that this is probably not going to be a good idea.
Yeah. Too many people think I have it, I have space, I will do this. And be like, you could do this. It will not solve your problem, or it will not reach the financial goals that you need to, or a lot more work than what you're actually willing to put in. But if we can get those things together, at least we can give you an answer and side of us
Yeah.
working directly with building owners. Yeah.
I did have a question about kind of the buying side. Like, obviously, I've mostly worked in tech companies, and that is always either a valuation based on monthly recurring or annual recurring times a multiple. Is the valuation similar? And is there like such a thing as seller financing in co-working? Is that a thing? I know it's very popular with SaaS. I'm not sure if it's popular with co-working. So two questions
So
for you.
valuation really sits. We have a space right now in the marketplace. It's just take over my lease type thing. It's losing money. The pathway to profitability is there. He needs to move on. So you can have it basically for free. There's places like that. If it's profitable, it sits in around a 2.5 to 4x annualized profit. If it's profitable or sits there at break even, but it's underutilized and there's a pathway to profitability, then we call it an optimized profit. And that can sit somewhere between that 1.5 to 3x range if the pathway is fairly clear that you can use. So there's different ways that we evaluate it, and it often meets the needs of, does the person just need to move on, like with those life events? We have a space that's doing well. It's 2.5x to lead into your second question. And that's 2.5x, not optimized. That's current profitability. You looked at optimize and we're at 1x on that one. Okay. Seller financing. This seller is willing to do seller financing on around 65, basically on 2/3 of the package price of the sale price. A lot of the times people are willing. I don't know if I should say a lot of the times because that would mean the majority. It's below majority, but people are open to it if it's not a lifestyle change event. If they're going to live in the area and they're like, great, I would just want to hand it over to someone, charge you 9-10% interest. Great. Seller financing is possible. What they're going to have to do is, if you suck at it and you run the business into the ground, is they're going to have to come and step in. Yeah, they're going to claw it back. And that's why they're more comfortable doing that if they still live in the area.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So for folks who are listening in, seller financing, if you've not sold a business before or bought a business before, is essentially taking a loan from the company you're buying from to pay them back over time at a agreed interest rate so that you put less down. There's a lot of TikTok crazy stuff right now about people buying companies for $0 down. And I'm not saying go and do that, but it is something worth considering if you're looking to buy or even sell your company, to get what we call seller financing in place, where you're taking less upfront or you're giving less upfront and you're financing it from the profit. So it's from the PE world, I believe that's where it originally came from, but it's definitely a pretty interesting way to buy a company.
Yeah. So to complete that thought, so if you're buying a business at 2.5x, basically at current state cash flow, you're going to be paying that loan off over the next 2.5 years of profitability plus interest. And then after 2.5 years, you would own that business outright. That's the goal. So yeah, using the existing cash flow to go back to the owner that's selling you the business.
Yep. It's just fascinating. We're definitely going to have to do a deep dive, you and I, or a session on kind of the different ways to buy and sell. But you did say that there are times in a person's life where they need to sell their business or their co-working space for whatever reason. The big reveal this week is that Creative Density has now merged with Thrive Workplace.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit more about that deal. Why now?
Sure. There's a lot in the thought process about this. And I think that's going to be the most valuable thing to you guys listening here is you're probably already an existing space owner and you're like, what are my options later on? I don't know. I've been doing this for 12 years. God, no, 14 years as an operator. DenSwap was, so the life event would probably be, I have 2 kids now. One of them's 10 months. So got the newborn thing, put your head above water, looking around. The other one been doing this for 14 years. And now DenSwap is really, me and my partners, we're ready to put all of our attention into DenSwap. So things taking more attention from me, not as flexible as before. The other one being, I've known these guys through Denver Coworks Alliance. They were originally members of the Denver Coworking Alliance. We both started our spaces probably within 6 months of each other. We've known each other for 12 years. So we already have a good relationship. We know what our brands represent. So we already know that there's a cultural fit. All right. So we have a cultural fit. I have other things I want to work on. Here's the other one. This is going to be very poignant to the audience, is my right-hand person. She left after 4 years of working with me. So she was really running Creative Density and I was her assistant. for a long time. And then it was time for her to move on. Great. Glad she like outgrew the role and everything. But then I get pulled back in to the day-to-day operations. So I have to move DenSwap forward and all that stuff, be a good dad and everything, with her kind of running the ship and I'm being an advisor. When she leaves, I get pulled back in and I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to do this anymore. Other projects, I got other things, I got things to do with my time. Within 2 months of that, I probably called up the Thrive guys, the Thrive brothers, and was like, guys, it's time. They took me out to lunch like a year and a half before. And they thought they were asking me to merge, but they never like actually asked me out on a date. And I had no idea that that's what they were talking about. And so when I gave them a call and said, guys, I want to have this discussion, they're like, I thought you said no to me. And I'm like, I didn't know you asked. And we were already like at least one party of us was like really warm to that conversation. Now, okay, so we have a cultural fit. I have a need. Why would Thrive want to merge with Creative Density? And why would I want to merge with them? Thrive is at this point, 5 locations, all ranging between 10 and 40,000 square feet, like larger regional hubs across Metro Denver. My spaces are all 3, they're smaller locations, right around 6,000 to 8,000 square feet. They got to this scale to where there's middle level managers. So they have the community managers and associates. Then you have owners up here. And now they have middle level managers in charge of people and in charge of operations. So at 5 locations, they needed middle level managers, but that middle level managers have opportunities to scale. So they have extra capacity, and Thrive needs to grow in order to justify those large salary increases for managers. So they have a need to scale and a desire to scale. And I have a desire not to be in the day-to-day operations. It was very complementary from an operational and lifestyle place, I guess.
Makes a lot of sense.
Most co-working spaces, they call it the middle. There's this big gap, and it is to get to that middle level management. And really, you either have to have 5 locations or you guys need to merge. That's the benefit of merging, is you can start having these divisions of labor that most co-working space owners think about, but don't know how to get there without taking incredible risks.
Yep.
So yeah, that's where merging has its benefits. And we do see that's going to happen across the US.
Yeah, we're seeing that trend. We just reported a merger over in Germany, creating, I think, a 34 location network now. We saw it in APAC, another kind of merger bringing 4 brands into one group. So it's definitely a trend we're seeing. My question to you is, having purchased, sold, and merged in the last 5 years, why merger and not pure cash on the table, walk away?
Walk away. The way that Creative Density was structured is it was all management agreements. It is all management agreements. Creative Density does all neighborhood management agreements. Transitioned to that over the years. I'm not sure if there was much value in the business. Like the valuation of the business wouldn't be that much. But by us merging, really allowed the profits from Creative Density, the cash flow of Creative Density pays for me a little bit of profit for Thrive. And I can then use my expertise, my skills, to grow the merged Thrive brand. So it's basically like this merged company gets a new leadership team member for free, and then we can compound our skills together. So the value was just much more impactful by doing a merger. I get to work less, so I can do my other projects. I sit much more at advisory and business leadership level. I get the benefit of a growing brand because there are economies of scale. There will be, we can't increase profit margins and scale faster. And that's our vision, is to be up and down Colorado's what's called the Front Range. So when you think all the mountains on the east side of the Rockies, Denver, Colorado Springs, Fort Collins, Boulder. Those are all front range cities.
Got it. That's a really interesting approach. I'm trying really hard not to use the word synergy or 1+1 is 3, but that's essentially what the play is, right? By creating a combined entity, both entities are now more valuable. And by having that shared advisory team, you spread that benefit, but you also share the upsides. So tell me a little bit more about the deal structure, right? Has the one company been absorbed into the other? Obviously, I'm not sure how much you can share, but given that this is the topic of today's call, how much can you share? Is
Sure.
it, yeah, what were the deals?
I can speak in vague enough terms that everyone seems comfortable. Okay, so Thrive already had investors. So they were financially, their corporate structure was already tight. A lot of co-working spaces just aren't quite as tight as they are. They don't have any investors right now. They bought each location as its own holdings company, independent business. Then there's management. 10% of revenue goes to Thrive Management. Typical in these types of agreements, in like franchises. So they follow this. 10% goes up to management. I own equity stake in management. Each holdings, 10% of revenue goes up to management. I am one of 3 owners in management now.
Got it.
So pretty straightforward and simple. The other party that you're probably not thinking of, like all these synergies and everything, is building owners, is landlords. They like dealing with companies that have more steady, predictable cash flow. So dealing with a one-off operator, someone that maybe has one other location, those are risky entities for them.
Yep.
If there's someone with a proven track record and extra cash flow, so that if that one location isn't profitable, there's cash flow coming in they are much more comfortable executing with that type of partner. And that is a benefit of scale, because you also basically get with that building owner a better investor, because they're willing to give you more free rent. They're willing to give you more free TI, tenant improvement budget, to build out all your offices, do your carpet and everything. So you get more free rent, you get more free TI, and you can actually get in the room for the conversation. So there is a lot of benefit of being at a level of scale. And any co-working space owner that has done this individually just knows that once a better, well-known entity comes in that's looking for that same property, that building owner is going to push, and they're like, you know what, I'm going to go with Jimmy John's versus new sandwich shop.
Yes.
There's benefits there. We also are keeping the co-working brand, and we're doing 2 separate brand entities. One serving more neighborhood automated spaces, the other one hospitality, larger hub focused. But members get access to all the locations.
Oh, that's cool. So you got like a reciprocal program between both brands. But that was going to be my next question is, are you keeping the brands separate? Are the teams staying separate? Or are you merging the teams as well?
Teams coming together. Operationally, very similar. We all use the same software. There's a few differences that will probably be all worked out over the next couple of months as they come up. Like pretty easy, same operations, 2 different brands coming up on top to serve 2 different target audiences and 2 different landlord desires, like more TI. Creative density requires less TI, can go after a different target market, play around with different strategies there. Thrive being more maximize revenue, which requires more TI budget, just a different audience. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. And we're also, that's another trend that we're seeing with these networks forming, of having multiple brands all targeting different parts of the market, right? We're seeing franchises do that. We're seeing groups do that. We're seeing 25N do a hyper luxe club, and then they're also looking at more affordable options. So it's definitely a really interesting reason to keep the 2 brands, other than the reasons you've said.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Landlord partnerships are the ones that drive a lot of that, and the number of TI. And sometimes they want to be pedaled to the metal. Sometimes they're like, what can you do for $10 a square foot? Creative densities, brand positioning, if it's in the right location, we're like, we can do that. we can lower off on the amenities. We just have a different target focus.
Mhm.
It's great when the leads come in from a landlord perspective to be able to say, here are your two options. The same benefit of the VentureX and Intelligent Office, the vast network group here in Colorado, they all merged together in this one company that has 20 locations across the Denver metro. They had locations. Okay, so like they had in downtown Denver, they have around I think they have 6 or 8 locations, all within 2 miles of each other, right? Like downtown and the neighborhoods. Some of them were really suffering. They have one flagship location right where everyone wants to be at Union Station. Beautiful space. It's $300 a month for parking, but they get all of the leads. Everyone's, yep, that's where I want. That's what I want. And then they come in and they learn that it's $300 for parking. This is how much an office is. And they might not have the right size office. They then present to them like, this one's a half a mile away, this one's another half mile away, and this one's over here. And these are like, this is what they have price points. They were able to take a space that was sitting right around 45% occupied up to 85% occupancy in the matter of 3 months by tying those leads in together and saying, yes, but down the street, 1 mile away, it's much cheaper and parking's a lot easier.
Interesting.
And so we just learned that the network effects, localized network effects from conversions is really powerful.
That is very interesting. And I can like connections being made in my head where I'm like, okay, you also know who's selling. So is there any plans down the line to bring in more brands into this group?
Not right now. The plan is right now we're going to have 8 locations. We really want to be up to 12 locations in the 2 to 3 years. We have another location lease already signed. We're executing on it. We could acquire. I think acquiring one-off locations. We've had a few discussions on that. And then we would transform that brand into being the one that fits us the best. But there's not many brands that have multiple locations. Like it's really these kind of one-off brands. They're like co-working spaces are still like coffee shops. The national players, you have significantly fewer regional players that 3 to 8 locations. And then there's this big old pool of independent play after that. So we already in discussions of acquiring a few locations that fit where we want to go. You benefit from it, and this goes back to our financing location. To acquire an existing business, you can get a loan much easier to acquire an existing business from a bank or investors than you can to drum up a new location. The same with buying a location. You can buy, buying a location, financing is a lot easier. There's a proven track record of cash flow that the bank is then looking at.
So if anyone was thinking about on the other side, getting out of their space, whether it is through an exit or a sell or a merger, what is like the pro tips you would tell them to get their ducks in a row so that this process can go more smoothly?
Boy, be profitable. That is number one. Businesses, we could list businesses on DenSwap to be a turnaround plan. And you're just like, guys, this is free. And they're like, it's only losing a little bit of money. Pretend like that's the purchase price for the next year. You're going to lose $50,000. Pretend that's the purchase price. You're getting this co-working space for $60,000, $50,000. And they're like, I'd rather pay $200,000 for a space that's making $60,000 a year. Is a lot easier pill to swallow. Number one, try to make your space profitable. You know that you're going to have to make some investments if you need to do that. You spend that $10,000, $30,000 to make it profitable, and then you can get a multiple on that. I know that's really hard for people to say because if they're looking to sell, they're like spent all their money and everything, and they don't have that last draw to come from. Okay, get your software, get your operations and software like tight. This isn't that hard. All the time, small business, and as long as everything is like working out and my bank account goes higher every month, that's awesome. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Have your operations and your processes documented in place. If
Mm-hmm.
you have great staff, that's a great thing because then it's much more turnkey. The space is this $10,000, $30,000 renovation, but this is what I think you should do. Even if you're not making a lot of money, if you can provide them that path forward with your knowledge, then at least lay the road for them. Be honest with what you're capable, you're going to bring to the table, and make sure
Yep.
everyone's also on the same journey. So that was the Thrive brothers, the other owners. I love this combo. It is an architect, general contractor, construction guy, and then me, which is just lives and breathes co-working, especially from a data analytics and operations standpoint. So this merged company superpower is we have never opened a space above $45 a square foot in TI because they are the crew. Not like swinging every single hammer, but the GC, he can navigate the permitting. We've known tested out all these office layouts and how much they cost, and it just can slim things down that we can approach and say, we can execute faster. We have the construction crew, we have the co-working knowledge and processes, we have the brands in place that we can now go and get a place built out in 3 to 5 months, and we don't need that much TI. And so landlords are like, so find something with complementary. If it was with another Craig, it would be, now with 2 kids, I've become risk adverse. Partnered up with them, we are now better positioned to be aggressive in expansion. And they have proven to be more aggressive in expansion than me. That was something that I was personally reading. They opened up larger locations. They took on investors. I did everything with Visa and I recognized that as a weakness that was holding myself back. And I couldn't see myself independently pushing that risk aversion forward when I got other projects going on. So I wanted someone that was going to push us forward in taking bigger risks.
Craig, this is like a masterclass in all things M&A. I appreciate you joining us. I appreciate you sharing. I'm super excited for, what is there, a merged entity, or is it just going to be called Thrive Creative Density? Or what do we call
that is
the
a
group?
Really good question. Thrive Management is like the mothership company.
Got it.
Yeah. Creative Density, brand within Thrive. So let's call
Great. Congrats to the entire Thrive management team. We're rooting for you. We can't wait to see what comes next. And thanks again for being such an open sharer. Like, a lot of people don't open the books after they sell or merge. So we appreciate you doing that. And I can't wait to get you back on the podcast again to dig into any of the number of topics that you are obviously an expert in.
Cool. Hey, it was my pleasure, Hector. Thank you.